Hey everyone, we are live. If you're watching this live, thank you so much for joining me. This is such a fun opportunity for me, and it means the world that you would spend time with me writing a blog post. If you're catching the replay, that is also very cool, and I hope that you enjoy this and get something out of it. So, minor confession, when it came to actually planning my day out, my grandma is having an ugly Christmas sweater party at, I think, 1 today, and I was like, all right, well, I don't want to miss that. So I pre-ironed out what my blog post was going to look like. I sort of like came up with the outline before I actually did my writing. So I'll write it fully today, but it's not completely from scratch. That's my small confession. Hopefully you're still going to enjoy this. And as always, I will be spending my time as equitably as I can between actually writing a decent blog post and answering any questions that come up. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write. You can go ahead, write a question whenever you want, and I'll get to it kind of when I get to it. When I come to a natural stopping point in my blog post. But in the meantime, if you have any question, if you want to just go ahead and tell me where you're from, if you're writing a blog post today, I love the idea of all of us kind of writing together. So if you are, I would love to hear it. So I'm doing another listicle because, well, you know what? I'll tell you exactly why. It's because my stats have been really low this past month. So like if you look at the month before that and the month before that and the month before that, they were pretty high. Like this is my lowest month in a long time. And I was looking at the stories that did best for me in November, and they were all like, let me see if I can find it. 6 traits of deeply self-destructive people, psychological trick. Those were the ones that like made me a lot of money. So I wanted to focus more on that this month because I want to try to recuperate some of the earlier heights I got. So I was trying to figure out what kind of listicle would be useful. And instead of picking one from like what would make me money, I actually was thinking what's actually going to be helpful for people. So I'm doing like a listicle because I think it's a good format to get people to read my content. But I picked this, Intensely Resilient People, because I wanted to do something that's going to be useful. And for me, resiliency is one of those traits that has actually served me very well through my life. It feels a little braggy to say like I'm a resilient person, but I do really think that one of the things that served me really well is the ability to get back up when you're knocked down. And at the end of the day, that's what resiliency is. It means that you don't have a perfect life. It means that when you have struggles in your life, you know how to deal with them, and you can just sort of keep going, keep trying. So I've picked out my 11 habits. I've got a couple sources lined up. Let's go ahead and jump right in and start writing. Right. When I'm coming up with the introduction, I think like what a lot of people don't realize is the title is super, super important, but the introduction is almost as important when it comes to telling Medium what people are enjoying. If you get someone who clicks and then bounces, that's going to tell Medium this is a clickbait title. Let's not recommend this story further. If you get someone who clicks and then reads the introduction and keeps reading, that's going to tell Medium's algorithm this is high quality content that's actually useful and people want to read it. So the title is probably your first priority, but your introduction has to be your second priority. So let's come up with a good introduction here. One thing I really like is an anecdote. I struggle to do an anecdote for positive listicles, like listicles with positive traits, because I don't want to brag. I don't think anybody wants to hear me brag about how resilient I am. But I might take one from like my grandma or something. Let me think if I can come up with a good example here. Maybe not my grandma, maybe not my mom. it's not a great, I'm trying to think of a good example here. I hate pop-ups. Another word for curveball. I'll have to look it up, aren't I? Curveball, synonym. I don't like to start two sentences with but in the same like paragraph, if that makes sense. All right, so we've got an introduction. It's not my favorite introduction. I want to like tighten it up. I want to make it more relatable, but it'll be good for now. I'll take a break and answer some questions. Hello to Zach, Grazia, Jay Khan, Saurabh. I have joined Newsbreak. Actually, I can show you. I was going to do a little video on my experiences. I joined Newsbreak. I joined Focal Media. I've actually had a pretty good experience with Newsbreak so far. So like I've posted, I don't know, like 6 stories. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7 is being reviewed. And I've been getting like a good amount of page views. Like if I got 9,000 page views in a day on Medium, I'd be very happy. So Newsbreak is doing pretty good for me. I haven't actually received any money from them yet, though, so I'll keep you up to date. Hi to Carrie from Cleveland, Ohio, and hi Diana, who's not writing but taking notes while cleaning. Nice, from Boston. Hi Peter. So Jay Khan has a question. Does writing and publication in Medium, especially towards data science, have any prerequisite as you're the science? Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. As you're the student of machine learning. So most publications on Medium, especially the ones that are worth getting into, do have a pretty specific set of requirements for you to write for them. But normally that requirement just boils down to like write well. The best way, I mean, each publication is different. Each publication is owned by a different person. So the best way to do this is just to have a quick Google and say like, all right, write for towards data science. And then normally they've got really explicit guidelines that walk you through exactly what you should do. So like, you know, they've got specific guidelines for you there. Do you use Grammarly? Would you recommend using it to write articles? What can I do to improve my grammar and tone of my writing? I use the free version of Grammarly. I would recommend it. It like auto corrects a lot of my typos. I make a lot of typos and it's useful for that alone. Secondly, it helps with tone sometimes and like just catching structure errors that are pesky, but you will make them. And to improve your grammar and tone of writing, the easiest and fastest fix is to read your stories aloud. I do this after I write every single post on Medium. I read the whole thing top to bottom aloud slowly, and this helps me figure out if I'm making the right tone, if I'm hitting the notes that I want to hit. And reading it aloud also forces you to catch a couple grammar mistakes that your eye might have skipped over. Is it necessary to be a member on Medium in order to be curated? No. If you write good content, you will be curated. It is that simple. There's no relationship between being a member on Medium, the Medium Partner Program, and Curation. What was the other platform? Vocal Media. With Vocal Media, I've had less of a good experience. I think it's just I haven't quite figured it out yet. I'm importing 1 story per day, but so far I've got 3 reads and I've earned 2 cents. So I'll keep you up to date. Noctin Creations, Diana wanted to weigh in and say that Grammarly has made her a better writer. I 100% agree. The free version is worth every non-penny. It's free, you know, get it. Do I ever struggle with many story ideas that require an amount of work to even start? Like once I do this thing, I'll write about it. I do have a couple of these where like the ones that are more experience-based. So for example, I wrote this story, promoted a blog post. Oops. I wrote this story about spending $20 to promote a blog post, and it did require me to do a little bit of analysis, a few screenshots, you know, monitoring things, just keeping an eye on the performance. But as you can see, it was worth it. I got a ton of commentary on this, and I found that on Medium in general, personal experience stories, especially when you back them up with the kind of work that you're talking about, they do really well. That's a really, really strong topic or format to write on in Medium. All right, so back to my listicle. Here we go. I'm cracking on. I'm putting TK to note that I'm not done with this intro. I think I can really punch it up. Okay. I recently learned that when you're writing on Medium, you shouldn't use absolutes. So like most, best, number one, etc., unless you can back it up and prove it with like a scientific fact, which most times I can't. I'm just using it for dramatic effect. So I've been trying to cut down on my use of absolutes. They rely on each other to prop each other up, but I want like a fancier way of saying that. They rely on each other. Rely on their relationships to bolster themselves. Okay, so I think I want here, for each bullet point I create, like each little subsection here, I try to cite either a personal experience or an external scientific study. The reason I do this is because I want people to read this and understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. If it's personal experience, they can't dispute it. I experienced that. Nobody can take that away from me. And if it's a scientific study, it's an external expert who said, I looked at this. This is what I found. Here's my data. You can check it out for yourself. That makes my articles really powerful and really persuasive because it shows that I'm telling the truth. These are actually habits that are of intensely resilient people. All right. And then as I write this, I do a lot of like editing as I write. And as I write this, I'm like, that's a very clunky way to say this. So I'm just going to say, I already said further from the truth. Said an undeniable truth. All right, we can say that. See, I don't know if you caught that typo correction. I wrote like yourself or something with a V, and Grammarly caught it. Because this is a relatively long listicle, 11 habits, I'm going to try to keep each of my paragraphs short. So I want to do like problem, example, solution structure per paragraph. So here's my problem, my example, and my solution, kind of. We'll see how that goes, how that develops. I feel like I can lengthen that. We're going to come back. Okay, so that's number one. I'll do number two now. Number two, purpose. I got this from, I don't know if any of you caught, I did like an edit with me live session on Friday. I had somebody submit just a draft that they'd written, and I had a professional editor, Jordan Gross, come in and like do his whole process start to finish. And one of the things he said was to make each subheading like a full idea. So like summarize your whole point. So I think actually with that in mind, I'm actually going to retitle this because it's not a focus on building relationships. It's letting people in even when you're vulnerable. And that's a hard thing to do, but resilient people do that. Don't be afraid to let people in. Find purpose in what you do. We tend to pretend that. We sometimes pretend that we didn't really care in the first place. But I wrote candle selling business because I've got a candle right next to me. A lot of my everyday inspiration comes from the objects that are next to me. Okay, so it sucks to get knocked down when you're trying hard. I think so. This is our solution. This is our problem. So I need something in the middle about finding purpose. One tool I've just literally today, this morning, as I was writing my outline, found is NCBI. No, hang on. NCBI. I'm going to post the link in the chat. Actually is free. So hang on, let me back up. I like to cite as many facts as I can with actual scientific studies. Like I said, it makes you more believable. It makes your story more powerful. I normally recommend Sci-Hub because it's like a way of quote citing scientific studies that lets you get around the paywall that a lot of these scientific studies have. But it's super illegal. And because it's illegal, the website I use often changes domains or it changes like addresses, and it's hard to use and track down. So I found this, which I think is free, and I think it's legal. So this is what I'm going to start recommending instead. You can just type in. So like if I want to say finding purpose, let's see if we've got anything in here. It shows you like even clinical trials that are going on. I don't want that though. I want PubMed Central. Let's try if we maybe add psychology. The only issue I found is it's not very fluffy. It's very like science, facts, numbers. But sometimes I like stuff that's a little fluffier. Okay, that didn't pan out. That's fine though. How purpose makes you more resilient. All right, so this looks promising, but like I want something that's an actual study, not a blog post. Okay, perfect. This is actually good. Oh God, this is another blog post. Okay. Eudaimonic. Aha! I have a study or an expert I can cite. I will have to open a new incognito window because I think I've been paywalled here on New York Times. Don't do this at home, kids. Okay. Okay. Oh, stop. No. I hate pop-ups. Have I mentioned that already? Okay, so we want to... I normally try to cite scientific experts, but I'm actually going to say that Aristotle is an expert, and I'm okay to cite him here. I'm not entirely, I have to be honest, I'm not sure how that checks out with what we were just reading. Living with purpose makes you happier. All right. All right, Aristotle, eudaimonic happiness. I think it's okay to cite Wikipedia. That's my fun fact. I think you can and should. Although, to be honest, Wikipedia is better for the sources that they use at the very here. These sources are really good to use. So if you read something and you're like, I don't understand this, you read the Wikipedia article, and then you can cite any of their sources here, assuming they have them. Okay, so for section 2, find purpose in what you do. We've got our problem, we've got our expert, and we have our solution. Resilient people aren't always successful, but they aren't afraid of failure. This is because finding purpose in what you do, no matter if it's makes you happy, single failure can't knock you astray. All right, I think that's a pretty solid little section. And so I've done 2. I'll go ahead and answer some questions now. Harsh Rana, my articles are not even showing curation pending. Any suggestions? About a month ago, Medium changed the way they do curation, which sucks because it means that you can't see if you're still pending or if they've passed over or anything like that. The only thing you can do, if it's been over 2 weeks and you don't see, I'll show you what it looks like when you've been curated nowadays. You'll see if you go to your stats page, pick any random story, click details, you can see chosen for further distribution. If it's been a couple of days or weeks and you're not seeing this, I'd assume you have not been curated. I am new to Medium. What kind of post can I write if I am a traveler? I would say, why not travel stories? Like I was saying earlier, stories that have personal meaning, personal significance, talking about your experience, what you learned, and what you think other people can learn. Those are really, really powerful on Medium. That's the kind of story this audience is looking for. So yeah, I would say like travel guides, travel anecdotes, anything to do with travel, really. Anything that you wish you'd known before you traveled to a specific country. And I recommend the Post-Grad Survival Guide as your publication for those. Peter recommends not to buy Grammarly. He uses it sparingly and says it's not worth the money. What does TK stand for in my editing process? So TK is just I think it's from journalism. If you type in TK, there are no words in the English language naturally occurring that have TK. So I put this in when I'm like, I want to come back to this section, because if you Control F and put in TK, it won't show you any other words. It's only going to show you where you specifically put the letters in. Medium takes it one step further. If you have a TK in here and you try to publish, it's like, wait, hold on. You haven't finished. You've still got these TKs. Come back and do these. So that's nice. That's what I do when I have a TK in here. It just means like, come back here. right, find purpose in what you do. Let's go back to business. Trying to think of a good way to start this. I'm kind of struggling. Don't let yourself lose perspective. So resilient people, it's not that they're always cheerful. It's just that when they fail, they're like, this isn't all bad. Okay. Oh, I still have the comment up. Sorry, y'all. Swear I just capitalized that. Okay. Don't let yourself lose perspective. I feel like reach out if you need to. Very similar to don't be afraid to build people in. All right, we're going to pivot a little bit on this one. This is going to be prioritize your relationships. Resilient. And then I'm worried that people will think that they're the same thing, so I want to address that right away. So I'll say prioritize your relationships. Resilient people don't just let others in when they struggle. They help others too. And now I have to sell this point. Either with a personal example or with a... I think every single one of these words has a typo. It's so badly spelled that not even Google knew what I was trying to say. I like this, research shows, but like, what research? This is why I always cite my sources, because it frustrates me so much to read like research shows and then be like, what research? Cite your sources, people. They don't even have a little... All right, we are going to use this source, I think. All right, that's... God, that's dense, isn't it? That's not what I want. What do we want to use here? This looks promising. So you'll see like half of my time writing these articles is just... That was fun. What's another way to say in control? Self-efficacy, I guess. Efficacy. Self-efficacy. research shows. See, when I say research shows, I always show the research that research shows. So, all right. So we've got our problem. All right, that's number 4. Stopping for some questions. I'm not going as fast today as I was wanting. I might have to hop off before I finish. Do I always have to cite sources with author names and publication website, or is a descriptive link text acceptable? I normally go for the descriptive link text. I have seen on Medium people who write very, very academic stuff. So this is a listicle. I wouldn't consider this to be very academic, but people who are writing stories that are all about one specific subject or one specific study, they do more like this, with like proper citation, like you would see on any study, any scientific, peer-reviewed study. I only have these here for me to refer back to as I write this. All right. Okay, onwards. I'm hoping this is going to get into Mind Cafe, and this is how they format their articles. I'll go ahead and get that ready for them. Hopefully it will mean they're more likely to take it. Don't neglect your personal wellness. I was just trying to make sure that I didn't copy what I'd written earlier. Oh, I'm just gonna have to put my hair up. All right, I think this is repetition. I feel like this paragraph is getting a little too long, so I want to make sure that I'm not duplicating any content. So in this case, I say, I'm talking about like the sacrifices I was making, but I say it twice, right? So I say it here, the sacrifice I'd made, and then here again, more sacrifices I needed to make. So I think I can combine this. Like, because all my mental energy was being expended on studying. Slept well. There's definitely going to be a study for this one. Nailed it. Okay, I saw this one that I'm about to write when I was doing my research, and I actually loved it. So I want to show you when I'm doing a listicle, I try to put my strongest bullet point first, my strongest and my most unusual one, because what I want is when people click on this, this is the problem with listicles, is they feel like they've all already been done. So when you make a listicle, when I write a listicle, I'm trying to prove this is not your average listicle. This is an actually good, interesting, valuable, new thing that you will learn something from. So this was new to me, question thinking instead of judgment thinking. But as I was reading it, it made a lot of like intuitive sense to me. So that's why I think I'm going to move this one up to be my number one bullet point, because I think it's pretty strong. So, and here it is. Okay. First. Oh, I love this quote. This is so good. I'm putting this in as my setting an expert bit. Love that. I'm looking for my judger question. Or sorry, I have my judger question. I want my learner question. Oh, here we go. Okay, perfect. What's useful here? Oh, stop. Says, what was her name again? Marilee Adams, PhD, co-founder of Institute for Inquiring Leadership. I love a good institute, but I feel like that sounds a little pretentious. I'm going to see if there's another another way I can cite her. Okay, here we go. Dr. Adams says, Dr. Mary Lee Adams. Therapist. And what was the other thing she was? She was like a executive coach. Via experiencelife.com. Is that where she says it, or is that a line from her book? I think that's where she says it. Okay. To the Experience Life blog. Is it who's like that, right? Yeah. Okay. The more you focus on asking learner questions instead of judgment questions, the more resilient you will become. You know, for a holistic I'm doing on this, I still can't write resilient to save my life. Okay, so that's number 6. We are over halfway, people, but I'm already in here for an hour. I might have to go on a little longer. Okay, so a couple questions. Should I create an account on Medium with my name or my blog's name? I recommend creating a name with your own name, and then I'll show you how you can create a publication with your blog's name. So for example, here I am. You're about to see my profile. Beautiful, Zuli Rain. But I have my own publication that I have created called Zuli Writes. So Zuli Rain in Zuli Writes. And then I have my banner actually addresses both. You can create a new publication by going to stats, by going to your settings, and then click publications. And that takes you to how you can create a new publication, just like that. Easy peasy. I remember learning in AP Psych that there was a study testing fear response, and the best way to decrease fear was to admit you were afraid. That's really cool. If you can find this study, I would love to include that in my article if that's something you're okay with. Are all Grammarly suggestions right? I ignore some of them. I'm very precious about my commas. So for example, they're always trying to get me to put more commas in. Where is it? Maybe it takes a while to load. Here, they want me to put a comma in here, and I'm like, Grammarly, I think not. But so I would say no. Can I publish my stories with multiple publications or just one? Just one. So you can only have one story in one publication at a time. You can remove your story from publication and put it into another one, but you should have a good reason before you do that. Like if the publication's gone defunct or, something like that. I did not even know that you could do that on YouTube with the tips. So thank you very much, Taking Trades. Yes, my blog is on Medium. It is also a separate website. So zuliwrites.com is my own website. I just had this redesigned, so I wanted to show it off a little bit. But yeah, I've got my own publication on Medium, and then I've got my own website here. Okay. Number 7. Oh yeah, that's right. I want to move this up before I forget. Oh, I have to renumber all of them. Disaster. Okay. Find reasons to laugh. Oh, I'm just remembering I want to make a good point in my introduction. Okay, I'm happy with my introduction. Happier with my introduction. Find reasons to laugh. The last thing you want to do when you fail is to laugh. I'm pretty sure is this a new type of tip? That's a different color to the one I saw taking trades to earlier. But if so, thank you very much, James Sekamate? Thank you. Ah, I can cite a Medium article. I always like to do that. I feel like I'm just giving another Medium writer a handshake. Hey, sorry about that. Hopefully I'm back and you didn't miss me too much in my minor internet issue. Okay. Okay, nice. See, this is another person who's done their homework. Her research. Oh, it just cites a book. Okay, less than ideal. All right, I wanted to cite this Medium study, but it's just not formatted well enough for me to read. This does not cite. Okay, we're going to go back to NCBI. Laughter, stress, resilience. Great keywords. Let's see what we got in here. Okay, this looks promising. What is laugh therapy? I can cite this, but I want to make sure that I'm actually understanding what I'm citing. It was once a week, wasn't it? Once every 2 weeks. Okay. I always try to make my headlines not clickbaity, but interesting. Something that's like, okay, what does that actually mean? So I like this a lot because it's an accurate summary, but it doesn't give much away either. You're like, okay, what is question thinking? So I want to do that for all of my subtitles. I think don't be afraid to let people in is actually okay, because I think the real issue is that people are afraid, and resilient people let people in. So that's okay. Find a purpose in what you do. It's just a little obvious, you know? So I might get a little fun here and find eudaimonic happiness in your life. So it's an accurate summary, but it doesn't give the whole thing away. think that's a little better. Let others rely on you. Because it's a little counterintuitive. It's like, why would letting others rely on me build resilience? It's a little less obvious. Embrace humor. All right. Adapt to negative situations. I don't even know what I meant by this. All right, we're gonna change this a little bit to talk about this study because I think this is really cool. So from what I understand, looking at this study, it looks like they took a bunch of firefighters. They questioned them about people who experience traumatic events. And God, to be a firefighter, you'd probably experience a lot of them. So you've got resiliency poorly correlates with post-traumatic growth expressed in changes of self-perception. So if you have post-traumatic growth with changes in self-perception, that does not make you necessarily resilient, but it does correlate with challenge. I don't really understand that. Strongly correlates with the stress appraisal. All right, stress appraisal. I don't even know what they mean by stress appraisal. Okay. Problem, example, solution. Okay, so I can go ahead and give my example here. Okay, I think I need to reread this abstract because this is not making a lot of sense to me. Actually experienced post-traumatic growth. We're just missing one piece. I just need to know what stress appraisal is. I might have to look at this study and see if it's any better at describing what a stress appraisal is. Okay, I understand. It's the people who don't look at things in terms of what they stand to lose, but in terms of a challenge. Okay, so I can work with that. I'm going to get rid of this. That's pretty obvious. One study looking at Polish firefighters found that those who appraised the threat in terms of a challenge rather than what they stood to lose after the stress, not just returned to normal, didn't just go back to normal more quickly, but actually experienced. Okay, so I feel like I've got it now. So the problem is people look at situations and think of them in terms of what they personally stand to lose, rather than thinking of them as a challenge to test themselves against. So a really common viewpoint in the face of difficulty is looking at it in terms of what we stand to lose. Trying a new career. This is very clunky and very wordy. I need a better way to say this. Okay, let's think here. So it's not just in terms, it's okay. Okay, the problem is you have a hard, when you're facing something hard, a lot of us revert to loss mentality. What do we stand to lose? What is at stake? Resilient individuals, by contrast, view difficulties as challenges in their own right. There we go. I wonder if loss mentality is a thing. Well, I feel like I didn't make that up. Here we go. Loss mentality. Investopedia. Okay, so now we need to come up with a jazzy title. Don't experience it. Don't use. Don't. That'll do for now. Okay, on to the questions. Someone's in curation jail, but still keep using the same account. So good news is as far as I'm aware, curation jail doesn't exist anymore. If you're publishing a lot and not getting curated, and you're 100% sure you're meeting the guidelines, what I would do is to try to get into publications that frequently show up on curation pages. So for example, I want to show you a curation page for relation, I think it's topic, relationship. There we go. So if we look at the relationship topic, relationships topic, if I can type correctly, you'll see that one publication shows up a lot. Like one publication dominates the relationships topic on curation. So if you're writing about relationships, I would try to get into P.S. I Love You and see if that breaks your curation spell. Hopefully that will sort of trigger you to start getting more stories that are looked at by the curators. But worst case scenario, it's a good experience to try to get into some of these big pubs that have really high standards for acceptance. Would I consider turning my articles into YouTube videos? I actually did this with one. I forget which one it was. It was like the psychological something. And it did not do well. It was like my worst performing video in a long time. So I assumed that my audience just wasn't that interested in it. So it's something I've thought about. It's something I've tried once. I might have to try it some more. The bigger problem is I have a very long list of videos. People keep asking me really good questions. I don't know if you can see. Oh, that way. People keep asking me really good questions that I want to turn into videos. And I just have so many of those that I want to do that I feel like it's better right now to do those than focus on these. So, and yes, I have considered it. I think it probably is the time and effort, but it's an opportunity cost because every time I make one of those videos, it means I can't make one of these. That's where I'm at. Considering it, I have a routine when it comes to writing and being consistent and do it fast. Do I still have days when I just can't write, don't feel like it, and what do I do then? Yeah, I do. And on those days, I don't write. I have learned through very hard experience that if I force myself to write when I don't feel like writing, I produce garbage. That's just what I'm like. I find it better. But if that drought like carries on too long, in order to reduce the pressure, because I feel like when I come back to writing, it has to be good. I don't try to write stories. I try to just spend time writing. So even when I don't feel like writing, if it goes on for too long, I'll just try to write for like 5 minutes. It's hard to say, oh, I can't even write for 5 minutes. Anybody can do it. You just sit down and write for 5 minutes. Sometimes that's enough to get the juice flowing again. Sometimes I write and I'm still like, this is garbage. But that's, if I keep doing that for long enough, normally that gets me back on the writing train. But for the past, I don't know, year or so, if I haven't felt like writing, I just haven't written, and the feeling normally comes back a day or two later. Okay, so back to my story. I actually will have to check with my sister to see if we're doing the ugly Christmas party. Because I might have to drop off if so. While I'm waiting for a response, I'll crack on. This is my longest listicle ever. I wonder how many I've written. 1,400 words. So that's a 7-minute read already. Okay, embrace rejection. So I've done the firefighter one. I've done question thinking. What number is this? 9, isn't it? I'm not in love with this subtitle. We'll come back to that. Might have a better one after I've actually written the subheading. I need some water. Okay. So what do I mean by this? The problem is I'm afraid of rejection. And I think a lot of people will empathize with that. I think there's a discussion going on outside about whether we're doing the ugly Christmas party. So I'll just keep writing until I'm told that it is time to go. Similar to the point above, resiliency comes from viewing obstacles as challenges rather than something of losing something. In my case, it helps me to I've already said rather instead of is that a little kitschy? It's part of your journey all the same. I'm gonna leave it in. I'm just gonna leave it. Whatever. I'm allowed. Right, number 10. Oh, helpfully, I have told myself that this mindfulness was for my number 10. So with mindfulness, it's such a buzzword. I really want to be careful with what I title my subtitle here, because like everyone sees the word mindfulness and thinks they already know what it means. So I might actually not call this mindfulness. I might call it something else, and just sort of sneak people into the idea that mindfulness is good for you. All right. So this is how I love to read scientific studies. Look at this. You can see your abstract, your materials and methods, results, and conclusions. I can read the whole thing. It's broken up into digestible paragraphs. Honestly, I think this is a totally different subject. I think one of the biggest issues in science communication is that more studies aren't presented like this. Everyone can stand to benefit from reading scientific journals. If you make them like this, you'll get more readers. Anyway, that's my rant. Okay, so I'm already seeing I could talk about burnout instead of mindfulness. So that's one option. Resilience, all right. Or I could call SMART training. use smart methods to avoid burnout. Times matters. My concern here is that people aren't going to realize this is an acronym. They're just going to think that I'm writing SMART in all caps for no reason. Okay, to avoid that, I'm just going to say SMART is a, here we go. I'm just going to define it in the very first line. Is a SMART, stress management and resilience training, is an intervention that uses mindfulness to help. I don't want to use manage. I don't want to use avoid, help, dodge. No, it's not dodging. Reduce the risk of burnout. There we go. Use SMART methods to avoid burnout. SMART is an intervention that uses mindfulness to help reduce the risk of burnout. Great. I love it. I love where this is going. Okay. Lots of clinical trials are saying this is really good. Let's go back up to our conclusions. Sometimes, what's the opposite of resilience? Opposite of resilience. Sometimes a non-resilient response doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like giving up after trying too hard. What I want to say here is in all of the other points that I've been making, I've said a resilient response is basically where you get back up after being knocked down. But here, a non-resilient response isn't just not getting back up. It's like where you've burnt through all your resources. Resiliency doesn't, here we go. You get back up after being knocked down. It gives you the tools to avoid burning through your resources. Oh, there's a word. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's like economically, sustainably. That's it. Right. Yeah, actually, I agree with Sky Tower here that people recognize SMART as like the goal thing. So I'm actually, upon further reflection, I can't use this. So we're gonna have to go with something else. Use why do people keep using the same acronyms? All right. Manage resources. Manage own resources sustainably. All right. All right. Resiliency doesn't just help you get back up after being knocked down. It gives you the tools to avoid burning through your resources unsustainably. I've used burning like 4 times in this paragraph. I need something else. Synonym of burn. Blaze. Incinerate. Glow. Blazing. I like blaze. That's a very fun word. When I can, I like primary sources. So like for the definition of burnout, instead of citing this, I go to where they have cited it from, which ideally is a free article. I love NCBI. It's my favorite new thing. Burnout is defined. Here we go. It's a little long, which is why I've shortened it. This is good because I'm actually going to cite 2 papers in this one. Nice. Used to combat. Says that. It's not uses mindfulness. It's not teaches. That has participants practice mindfulness. There we go. All right. So I want to, in this point, I've outlined the problem, I've outlined my source. I now need to outline my solution. So I'm going to find their methods, because the really neat thing about these scientific studies is normally they're like, we used this cool method, and then they explain exactly what the method was, and you can just be like, this is what they did, and it really worked, which is pretty cool. So I want to just scroll quickly up to brief SMART program. So hopefully they'll here. Okay. Surveys. Intervention. This is the part I want. That guides learners to delay judgment and pay greater attention to the novelty of the world. Interesting. So this is really cool, actually. This is one of the things I love. Like, okay, I'm going to give an example of resilience here. Even if I publish this, and I'm always hoping that when I publish a story, it goes viral. This one probably won't, but even if it doesn't, I've learned so many cool things writing this. Like all of these scientific studies that are real, that are like actual facts, that's pretty cool. And of course, I've had this experience. It's always nice. Okay, so I want to reword this so I'm not just straight up plagiarizing. To use the SMART in your own life. Novelty of the world feels a little fluffy to me. Like, what are they actually doing here? Great. All right. We are cracking through, y'all. Number 11. Try new things after failure. See, like, this is what I mean. This is such a bad subheading because, like, try new things is such a boring subtitle that everyone's read stuff like this. Okay, so we've used this one. Ultimately, you know what? I'm not super inspired by this. So actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to NCBI and see if there are any cool resilience studies I can just poach. 87,000. Surely I'll find one good one. Okay, so let's actually try to filter out here because I don't really want to go through 87,000 of these. Let's see. If we add psychology. Okay, this looks promising. Updates from empirical evidence. Now, see, I don't love this abstract because this paragraph, like, this is just word vomit to me. I don't know what this means. I'm going to have to actually read the introduction now. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. What I'm doing here, I've actually read this phrase in a couple of my studies that I've been looking at, that one of the factors that predicts resilience is your exposure to traumatic events. So I'm not saying that everyone should be exposed to traumatic events, but what I want to say with this is go look for little failures, like just small ones, just enough to get used to what it feels like and start coming up with habits and pathways that will let you keep going even when you don't succeed. The thing. One trait all resilient people have in common is that they're used to adversity. And I know I can cite this because if I just Google exposure to adversity resilience, NCBI, my new best friend, has a neat article on this. That cracked me up. Skytower was like, I don't need small failures. I've already got all my big failures. Actually, that is a good point because what I'm trying to say is like, exactly that. You get used to failure and then you get used to not trying things anymore because you already think you know the outcome. What I want to say with this is like do little things that you know are not going to go well because then you have that under your control, which as I pointed out in this one, when you feel like you've got more control over a situation, you're more likely to bounce back from that. So I'm not explaining myself well. Hopefully my words will explain me. I actually love this as my last one because I'm finding it easy to sort of hook back to my earlier points, which is good because I don't want this to just be like a single long, but like you can read each item on its own. I want this to be a whole cohesive, holistic reading event where you can read each of these on its own and do better, but you'll get the best benefit from reading the whole thing. We already know that if you experience a greater sense of self-efficacy. I'm still not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, so we've got our study, we've got our example. Oops, I didn't want to do that because I want to put that in my introduction. Because I really liked this sentence. So I want to put that in my introduction. We're not done with that though. We're going to come back to the introduction. Experience life. I'm hurrying a little bit now because I can hear people sort of running around outside. Probably gonna have to go in just a second. The late, right? Okay. Okay, so as I said, what I do with every single one of my stories when I think I'm close to done is I read the whole thing top to bottom. Oh, I have to go now. I think it looks like they're about to do the sweater call. So I'm gonna go, but I hope that this was fun. I hope this this ending wasn't too abrupt. But thank you so much for doing this with me. And as soon as this is published, I'll post a link in the video description. And if you wrote something during this time, I would love to hear it. I would love to read it. Post it in the comments, and I would love to clap on it if I can, if that's something you're comfortable with. But yeah, this has been awesome. I do these every Sunday. I'll see you all next Sunday at 12, if not sooner. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all soon. Happy writing, everyone.